require.
Sorry, start now. Sorry. And also, we'll get everyone to turn their videos off when Ricki
I'll
starts.
do all that part of it,
Okay.
Ian. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, mate. You just take control of the machinery and let people in and out.
I've done that.
Thanks. Now, as Ian said, you, I will ask you to turn off your microphones, other than Ricki and I think myself, and we'll have Ian turn himself off too at this stage. And if you look at the screen at the bottom of the page, if you run your cursor along the bottom, you should have audio, video. If you wish to turn your video screen off, you can do it there. I noticed that there are 28 participants. Next to that, there is a chat box. If you have any questions, I think that would be the smart place to put them, unless it's a really urgent correction. But if we pick up the chat box things, I will keep an eye on it, and probably Ricki will as well while she's giving her presentation. If you move along and you really like it, there is a react button, and if you click on that, all sorts of things can happen. You can even next to it raise your hand and or all sorts of other things, and I think that's probably enough.
Can we get Gary and Helen just to turn their video off, please? Thank you. Helen Fletcher.
They're all right. We'll get them to do. They're all gone
That's
on
right.
silent, but
Oh, no,
yeah.
come back on. Oh, Brenda can't. Yeah.
Ian, turn yourself off.
Right. That's fine.
Now, Ricki, when I discovered that you had just given this presentation, I could not help but jump in and say, would you please do it for us? I can't think of a better person to talk about the little brown birds of our country than you. And I am expecting a little bit of a plug for your new book, and I hope it's selling well. I think Ricki's about to. There it is, ready for you to talk about it later on. And if you've never actually been in the field with Ricki, her knowledge is extraordinary. Not only that, she actually knows how to look rather than just how to be. She will truly look, not just notice, but see what she's seeing and be able to observe the behaviour. And Ricki, I am so pleased to have you with us tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's rip now.
Thank you very much for that glowing introduction, and thanks for having me along tonight, and thanks to everyone for coming along to hear and see. And I'm, of course, coming from the lands of the Guigal clan of the Dharawal people here in beautiful Kurrannula. So I'd like to just acknowledge the traditional owners and offer respects to elders past, present and emerging. And any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who are with me or with us here tonight. So little brown birds. I guess there's a few approaches to when people ask me to give talks about these, and sometimes it's about identification, because people really struggle. If you're a bit of a birder, quite often people will struggle with identifying little brown birds. And I think before we go any further, when I talk about little brown birds, I'm probably not talking so much about things like little grass birds and birds like that people don't encounter so much when they're kind of like setting out on their bird watching journey. They tend to walk in forests and woodlands and parks, and this is where they encounter what we call the acanthizids, which are your thornbills and gerygonies and scrub wrens, and you might get heath wrens if you're wandering in parts of the Royal, and all of their sort of allies. And today I really want to talk about, I guess, two groups of birds, because I want to cover two subjects, or I hope to cover two subjects. One is the breeding and feeding ecology of the yellow-throated scrub wren and white-browed scrub wren, and a little bit of how that relates to brown thornbills, and then the brown thornbill and striated thornbill, a little about their ecologies that helps inform us about where we find them, but at different times of the year, but also gives us a sort of some insights into just how amazing this world is, and the story of life on Earth, and how it unfolds, and how it's produced this some things beyond our comprehension even. And so I thought I'd start. It's actually funny because I dropped a bit of a video on this on Instagram and Facebook tonight, but I guess I'd like to start a little with the yellow-throated scrub wren and the white-browed scrub wren. And I'm just going to put some pictures up here and share them. Oops, I meant to push share first, and I hope this is going to work. And we should be seeing now some of my illustrations. So I am sharing, participants can see. So if we look at the top of the screen here, we can see an adult male and female yellow-throated scrub wren. And we can see some juveniles down here as well. That they're a little bit paler, and they have brown eyes rather than reddish black eyes. And their supercilium tends to be yellow all the way through rather than have that sort of white at the front, which you can notice. And down the bottom here, there's just some others from further up the coast and up in the Atherton tablelands up in that area. But so yellow-throated scrub wrens are not quite as closely related to the white-browed scrub wren as we used to think. And in fact, they're we've placed them back in another genus because they more or less, they have a common ancestor with the white-browed scrub wren and large-billed scrub wren, which goes back around about 10 or 11 million years. So they've gone down quite a different path. And I guess so have the large-billed and the white-browed scrub wren. So they're quite divergent in their appearances and behaviours. Yeah, so you've got these guys, and I guess I should introduce you to the white-browed scrub wrens now. And I hope you can see them as well, if that's still sharing.
It is still, Ricki.
These are like the ubiquitous little scrub wrens that we see when we walk through any forest and woodlands. And they basically, they've got like the little white brow and the white moustache and what I call the sergeant stripes on the shoulders. And they're very interesting as they go through their annual cycle, or from roundabout, you start to notice youngsters appearing that look like that little juvenile, which you can see above the chocolate-coloured one down there on the bottom left of your screen. And so that they're quite a plain little bird, the juvenile white-browed scrub wren. And then they go through like this chocolate phase. And I don't think that it's a molt between what we think of as the chocolate phase and the immature phase. I think it's feather wear. But because I don't think there's two molts that go on, because generally birds that are these sort of little precocial songbirds, the name of the game is get out of the nest quickly. So they go into what you call a dirty molt, which is often that juvenile molt, and just so they can get out, fly, sit on a perch, chase mum and dad around and beg for food. And then as they go, they either feather wear into the chocky phase, or they molt and feather wear from the chocky phase into the immature phase. And there really needs to be done some work done on that, because I really cannot find anything more about it. But your white-browed scrub wren, you tend to find they will bob around on the forest floor, but they're also like little mice. They sort of can flit off into very dense grass and shrubbery and ground cover and disappear, and they'll crawl around under there gleaning insects, and they will move up into the shrub layer quite frequently as well, and do the same thing there, gleaning from around the axils of flowers and flower buds and leaves and the like. And you often find them too, if you've got cabbage palm, they'll be in amongst the leaf litter in the middle of that sort of tends to sit on the top of the cabbage palm fronds as well, which is a real typical way in which you see these birds. Now they've got a slightly more pointed bill than the yellow-throated scrub wren, And that's to facilitate sort of nipping into those little tight places where they tend to nip away. And that when they get onto the rainforest floor, they tend to be more of a leaf scruffler. So they'll get in and with great energy start flicking leaves everywhere and working their way around through the leaf litter. Now, the yellow-throated scrub wren, on the other hand, is much more of a salutatory kind of, which does not mean salutations, I should say saltitation, or hopping lifestyle. So they hop around on the rainforest floor, and they don't only take small invertebrates, they also take small mushrooms and fungus, as well as any little fruits and figs and the like that have been broken open by pigeons or bowerbirds. So they have and they will never even turn over a leaf. So they're just opportunistic foragers. And so the tip of their bill is a little blunter than the white-browed scrub wren. So that just helps them glean straight off surfaces. So they, I can see we've got something happening in the chat there as well. Often, yes, with lyrebirds, which I'm just about to mention. So they basically, what we see going on with these two species of birds, they share the same territory, they're the same size, they are the same foraging guild, but because they forage differently and they've got different behaviours and structures, they tend to not clash, so they can live side by side in what we call resource partitioning or niche separation. So this means that they can be within metres of each other and there'll be no aggression. But it's very interesting because as soon as the superb lyrebird turns up and starts scratching around, and sometimes log runners, which is part of my interest in log runners, which I was talking about earlier, and sometimes even eastern whitbirds, once there's a little bit of action going on and leaves and a bit of soil's getting thrown around, the yellow-throated scrub wren will come in for its free meal, because to them this is just another opportunity to just this opportunistic foraging. Whereas your white-browed scrub wren, they'll also come in, but they're a little smaller, and so the yellow-throated scrub wren will tend to start showing aggression and chase those white-browed scrub wrens away. So they come in with a very aggressive tone. I've got video of this. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare that. I could have shown you yellow-throated scrub wrens turning up at lyrebirds and chasing away the little white-browed scrub wrens. And so you'll often see that if they're about. And so, yeah, because these guys, I can never work out if we're talking about a mutualism or a commensalism. So a mutualism is where two species profit from their various behaviours, and commensalism is where one species profits from another's behaviour, because the yellow-throated scrub wren will follow the lyrebird around, and they will they'll be gleaning any prey that the lyrebird leaves behind, and the lyrebird gets to stay head down foraging more efficiently because it knows that the scrub wren will give the warning alert and start with it'll start with this sort of like nyeh, 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 little really aggressive call, like to scolding call to chase you away. And if that doesn't work, it will make a very loud tick tick, or tack tack call and fly. And the lyrebird knows to leave as well when that happens. So the lyrebird can confidently forage better. So there tends to be that mutual side of it, but we so often see lyrebirds quite cheerfully foraging away anyway that I'm not sure that there's that much to be gained. So it may be that it is a commensalism. But either which way, there is that sort of that shared opportunity going on with these birds. So yeah, I guess this sort of expresses when we talk about these birds having made these slightly different adaptations or coming from a common ancestor to be these two different birds that are still fairly closely related, and having quite different features. Like the yellow-throated scrub wren has a larger wingspan as well as longer legs for its hopping life, but larger wingspan because it lives in slightly more open habitat. and so it's a slightly stronger flyer than the white-browed scrub wren, because white-browed scrub wren's adapted with little round wings for flitting through much denser foliage and cover. Now, there's something very interesting too that I noticed about the yellow-throated scrub wren, and that is that round about late July or August, the male and female come together. So they're what we call monogamous pair breeders, which means boy and girl stay together for pretty much the course of their life, and will breed together each year and share a territory. So the yellow-throated scrub wren is very territorial. The white-browed scrub wren is also territorial, but they're a cooperative breeder. So the young from previous clutches or generations will stay around and help mum and dad raise the next generation, and sometimes even males who haven't been able to make their own territory yet will join them and help them to raise their young as well, and sometimes also try and cuckold that the alpha male of the family, and so in that way, do a little bit of sowing their own personal oats, but they do get the advantage of learning how to hold a territory, putting a bit more age on, and so they learn in that way. With the case of the yellow-throated scrub wren, being a monogamous pair breeder, they are very strongly territorial, and so I got into yellow-throated scrub wrens in a big way when actually Steve and Smith said to me, things are disappearing from the park, and I thought, oh no, I love these birds. So I started surveying them and found that actually isn't the case. There are dozens and dozens of these birds right in pairs right along the Hacking River and Bowler Creek on both sides, and they seem quite secure. But anyway, so I've mapped out the territories of quite a few of them and have been observing them for the last 3 or 4 years now. And so what I'm finding is that round about late July or August, the male and female start to come together and forage together. Up until then, and I'm still hearing it today, I was down there checking this today, they will make a little call to each other, sort of like across a distance within their territory. And it's just a little whistling, sort of like a call. So it just goes. And a lot of people will think it's a golden whistler's single note call, but it's a bit more wispy, and it ends in a slightly minor note. So you just it sort of goes towards that minor key, and you just think, So this is them calling to each other. They will also, interestingly, call to their neighbours, and I suspect the neighbours they're calling to are related to them. So I would love to be trapping and colour banding these guys, but we don't really want to see colour bands on birds in the Royal National Park so much. But it would be amazing to learn out a little bit more about their demographics, because what happens is they come together in about August, and the male will start feeding the female, and he starts out about every 4th prey capture. He will give her a little invertebrate, and so they'll hop along side by side together, and they're making this little tick, 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 or a little tack, tack, tack call as they go, and it seems when he gets to about constantly feeding her every 3rd prey capture, that seems to be round about the trigger for her to start building the nest. So she'll start building this nest, which is quite a large affair. I don't know, you've possibly seen these hanging over waterways and the like from thin branches. Now, a lot of these really like dark roots and leaf skeletons and a little bit of vine here and there, and woven into just look like some flood debris hanging from the tree. And I've noticed that, especially since we've had a lot of floods with water running right along Lady Carrington Drive, the tendency is to build them even over the trail itself. But she'll do all the work, and every time she'll grab a little root or a leaf skeleton or something and fly over to build the nest. He'll fly with her, land on top of the nest, go tack and watch her build it, and then they'll fly off. And he might get some food and feed her while she's building the nest as well, because she does all the construction of this thing the size of a football. And he will he joins in the whole time, just following her backwards and forwards and protecting her. So protecting his investment, I guess, if you like. But so eventually she builds a very nice nest, and he continues to feed her. And she will go in and lay 3 eggs. She will incubate them. She will stay in the nest pretty much all the time. And then she will also, when the nestlings hatch, she'll stay in there with them. And she will take out fecal egg sacs and now and again bring in food. But the male will bring in most of the food. Now, I've noticed that there is one male, and it's the pair at Jersey Springs, and Brian knows Jersey Springs. I don't know how many other people we've got here from who walk in the Royal regularly, but yeah, there's a little picnic ground, or an old sort of semi-abandoned picnic ground called Jersey Springs, and there's a pair of scrub wrens live there. And I've given them all names. So they're all named after soap opera stars or pop stars from the 60s, 70s and 80s. So it's Herb and Dory of Number 96 fame, who reside or hold forth at Jersey Springs. He is the most successful of the birds, because what I'm noticing is they produce 3 males consistently every year. All of the other scrub wrens I'm observing right along the Hacking River and Bowler Creek can't raise more than 2 males and generally only raise 1 male. And now males are more difficult to raise because they stay around for longer. They'll stay around till April or May with the adults, because they've got to learn the ropes a bit more. They don't have like a cooperative couple like the white-browed scrub wren, so they can't go off and join another family and learn. They have to stay with mum and dad, learn the tricks of the trade, and then go out and fight for a territory and find a girlfriend, make their way in life. And so all that time they're going to be demanding more food, and they're mum and dad are going to keep helping them out, and so work very hard on their investment. So it is more difficult to raise a male bird. So now here's where we get to something very interesting, because there's been some research done on the brown thornbill, and I guess at this point I will introduce you to the brown thornbill. Let me just first of all come to the share side of things, back to this. And brown thornbill, you're likely to be familiar with this bird. This is the guy down the bottom here. I'll give you this picture. So here's an illustration of the brown thornbill, a common little bird that we find in the shrub layer generally of woodlands and sort of dry and wet forests, and sometimes rainforests as well, in the shrub layer for most of the year. And they're the guys with the little streaked or striated breast, and they've got a red eye, and they round about this time of year they start warbling, and because this is a territorial thing. So we're in the month of Burrigan, according to the Dharawal people, which is the month of the echidna, when the echidnas start making their little trains, and the males are all following the females, and the Gymea lily starts to come into bloom, and we can see they're getting quite red now if we're walking in the bush. But to me, the month of Burrigan is when the brown thornbill starts to do a lot more warbling, and it'll do a 4 or 5 note warble call, and also the grey shrike thrushes start singing and fighting with each other. And so that's 2 of the things I notice in this month particularly. But these guys are also monogamous pair breeders. So they're a little thornbill, not a scrub wren, and but related to the scrub wren group. Now these guys, we noticed that, or there was some very good papers done, or a series of very good papers done by a PhD student about 15 years ago or more on the brown thornbill. And he found that this bird, also being a monogamous pair breeder, tended to fail in its first year with its girlfriend, and often even into the second. But the third year, it started to hit its straps a lot more and started to be better at raising young. But interestingly, again, the female does all the work on the nest, and she will do all the incubation. She will also attend to the nestlings, and you have the male feeding the female. And he discovered that they are choosing the sex of their young. So this is called facultatively choosing the sex of your young. So in birds, they flip the sex chromosome thing. So of course, in mammals, it's males are XY and females are XX. So the male carries, the male and female chromosome. So in birds, that's flipped. So the male bird is ZZ and the female is ZW. Now, the higher her progesterone level, the more likely she is to produce a female. The lower her progesterone level, the more likely she is to produce a male egg. Now, the fascinating thing is that the better her nutrition, the more likely she is to produce that male. So the progesterone level drops. So if he is a good provider, he can produce a male offspring. And the male offspring, of course, stays around for longer, demands more food the whole time, does the whole thing of a monogamous pair breeding type bird. So they will, it's like this is a break, because if he wasn't capable of raising males and he's just willy-nilly, like randomly producing male offspring, he could tend to fail a lot more. But if he is strong enough to do the hard thing and feed that female more, it proves he's going to be able to feed that young male bird more. And so it's, like I say, it's kind of like a handbrake, a genetic handbrake that just says, we are equipping you with the ability, or we're giving you the offspring that you will be able to manage, so you can become most successful. And you can be most successful on a number of levels. Like you can succeed in, yes, if you're not up to raising males, you can raise some females. But if you can do the hard thing, you're going to get a genetic advantage in your population by producing more males. So you can spread your genes more. You can spread your capacity for success more. And this is a fantastic discovery to me, because it tells us a whole lot about the power of selective forces, even down to this minutiae, and how this random mutation has been proven to be successful in a way that's been quite hidden and that is yet quite powerful. And so we have this situation with the white-browed scrub wren. Now, there's been no research done about the yellow-throated scrub wren, but we see exactly the same things happening. And
Ricki, there's a question, and it was one that I was going to ask from Brenda, that if they are monogamous, what's the advantage of the male versus female ratio?
If they are monogamous.
Yeah, if they're monogamous pairs, why is it beneficial to have males rather than females?
Well, only because you can do the thing others can't. And so that means you get a genetic leg up in the population. So because if others can't produce as many males, then you're producing more males instead. So your genes are being spread more, because that's the only thing that the living world cares about, is how much you can spread your genes. That is your success. Your success is how many offspring you can produce, how many viable
Brenda's
offspring.
question probably is about, what about the numbers of birds? I mean, a female could, well, I suppose this is because if it's polygamous, a female can have more than one clutch, can't she? And breed with more than one man. I
Yeah,
suppose a man can breed with more than one woman too. So if there's more women, there'd be many more chicks.
well, we see birds doing both these things.
Yeah.
In the case of yellow-throated scrub wrens, I seldom see more than one clutch raised a year. I've heard of multiple clutches with brown thornbills, but I think they only do that if they fail, because they do have a high failure rate. So the average across the board is surprisingly low. It is 1.2 young successful per year for brown thornbills. But I see a higher success rate amongst the scrub wrens, or seemingly amongst these yellow-throated scrub wrens. But yeah, so the brown thornbills, of course, they've got to really defend their territory because others will come in and try and cuckold as well. So they're always doing that. So the males have to be very good at preventing that. But once they've sort of settled down, that female has laid that clutch, they're locked in for the season, and they will now go ahead and do the hard work. If they lose their clutch, then the brown thornbills will do another clutch. I don't know about the yellow-throated scrub wren. There's no research done about that. I've not seen them try and raise a second one. I've seen the females do things like build a little fake nest, and then she'll build the real nest. So they build like a little decoy nest somewhere on their territory. And it's very interesting, of course, when if you approach a yellow-throated scrub wren nest in the breeding season, you might start hearing a massive diversity of birds start to sing. And it will be the male, usually. The female's good too. They will start to unleash with the most amazing mimicry, and they can mimic far more birds than you hear lyrebirds. And in fact, they will do the lyrebird bee call, which is the do-do-do, do-do-do. And you can sometimes hear this little tiny do-do-do, do-do-do going on, and it's a gorgeous little scrub wren bobbing along, doing this beautiful mimicry. And this, of course, is called the bow jest defense. And for those who can recall the movie Bow Jest from the 50s or early 60s, where there was like the three brothers left and they had the Arab hordes coming at the fort, and all of the people were dead at the parapets, and they stuck guns under the shoulders of all of these dead soldiers at the parapet and were firing them and pretending like there were still dozens of them alive, and that scared off the Arab hordes. And they think that this is why the yellow-throated scrub wrens also do this mimicry, to think, oh, well, there's so many birds, I'm out of here. This is not the place for me. So they call it the bow jest defense. But yeah, so they have all of these very endearing and wonderful behaviors. And of course, they have that beautiful liquid territorial call that they make and sing. And they really are the joy of the rainforest and the tall, wet forest, to hear all of the different kinds of song and to see these wonderful behaviors going on. And they are one of the rare birds that will use their nest during the winter months as well to sleep in. So it's not just a cradle for the young, it's a little home for them to live in on a cold winter night, which I think is gorgeous. And but when they are finished with their nest in the summertime, often their cousins, the large-billed scrub wren, will move in, renovate, and raise a clutch in there. They also do that in brown gerygony nests and sometimes build their own nest. And so that's a really cool commensalism with one of their relatives. And also those nests, not so much around the royal, but further up the coast where you get more golden tip bats, little tiny microbats that live in wet sclerophyll forests and rainforests, that they fly around at night taking spiders out that live in the middle of webs. So like golden orb weavers and triangle spiders and some of these other little spiders that live in the middle of a net in their web in the rainforest. So these bats will sort of fly through and take them. And by day they roost, all hanging from the bottom of the yellow-throated scrub wren nest. And they're very tiny and you can barely see them unless you know about this and go looking. But it's another fascinating commensalism that tells this bird plays a sort of, a very interesting role in the rainforest. And but I do think this there's room for research to explore if these birds are also facultatively choosing the sex of their young. And it wouldn't surprise me given that those so many similarities in behaviour and need with the brown thornbill. And what I'm tending to see when I get round the traps in the park and see what's going on. And yeah, so that's really quite fascinating. And I guess I'll segue a bit into brown thornbills if we're still all right for time. Are we still good for time?
Doing fine.
Doing fine. Good, thanks. So with our brown thornbills, of course, so they're another very interesting bird. And as I was saying, they're monogamous pair breeders. They're choosing the sex of their young, and I guess the choice is made, of course, by the female's physiology and by the male's capacity to feed her. And so that little wonderful aspect of their life's going on. But it's very interesting because these birds spend most of the year in the shrub layer of the forest. On a cold morning, they might go a little bit higher to get up where there's a little bit more sunlight and the insects are moving more. And but they come down to the shrub layer by the middle of the day. And but in the summertime, as the spring turns up, they will start with this warbling. They'll start fighting all the neighbours off, defending a territory, and then they go down onto the forest floor where they build a nest in amongst all of the shrubbery. And so sometimes it's just a few centimetres off the ground, and they build this beautiful little nest, and it's a little ball with like a side entrance, and they raise their young there. And here's where you get an interesting dynamic between one of their near relatives, and I think it's time to share a screen again. And these guys, the striated thornbill. Striated thornbill is a very interesting little bird. Usually lives in the sub-canopy of the forest and the woodlands. And so you can really break your neck on these guys because they live quite high. And they feed on invertebrates, but they will also take a lot of lerp. So they share that space with weebills and spotted, all the pardalotes. And so when we say lerp, we mean the little sugar coatings that psyllid or sap-sucking insects make on the leaves of the trees. And so you need a slightly blunter bill for that. So when we look at your striated thornbills and compare them to like weebills, who live up to their name with a very little short blunt bill, and the pardalotes, who also have quite a little short stumpy bill, very well equipped for sort of like working like a little chisel to get those little sugar caps off and snack on them. And of course, they're competing with so many honey eaters and parrots and the like as well. And so lerp is a very valued food source. So this is one that your striated thornbills are up in the treetop doing. But and they tend to get bullied and beaten up on by the brown thornbill. So they stay up higher for most of the year. And I should say another very cool thing about, while I'm talking about striated thornbills, they one way you can really tell if you're looking up into a treetop, if you see a small bird flitting around, and because they will hover around looking for the greatest density of prey, of little lerps on the leaves, so they'll hover around and then they'll grab onto a leaf and hang off it, and they call this leaf hanging because they've got very long, strong claws, and sort of the proportions of their legs are just right to make them very strong and able to grip and hang off a leaf and feed off that. And you won't see other birds doing this so much anywhere near with the frequency of the striated thornbill. And so quite a fascinating little bird. But in the summertime, when your brown thornbill moves down, the striated thornbill also moves down into the shrub layer and make a beautiful little nest, usually out of like stringy bark and the like. So they find a lovely little stringy bark and build this beautiful little nest. And it's like a little sort of ball shape with a side entrance and a little porch over the top to exclude your cuckoos and the like, and I guess offer a little shelter. And so they're very interesting because striated thornbills will also live in a big clan, and it can be up to 60 birds, but usually around Sydney I see like a dozen or two. And then come breeding season, they move down into that shrub layer, and you get a pair go off to build the nest with one or two young males to help. Now, the young males will not necessarily help with the nest construction, but they help with the feeding of the young. And so now you have a little cooperative breeding set of cooperative breeding birds. And usually around about 60 metres along the trail or along into the bush, you'll find another nest and another nest. So they have this sort of like big breeding colony with these little family groups or cooperative groups, and they will defend that territory. They'll defend around their nest from the others. But once the young reach a certain age, they all come back together and raise each other's young. And at that time, it is absolute mayhem in the forest. And that's when a lot of people tend to see your striated thornbills, because there's so much action, you can't miss them. And you can really hear that call going on, and the young are all chasing adults all over the place, and it's a very glorious scene. But that can only take place for as long as the brown thornbills stay down lower where their nest is, catching prey for their young. Why they move down lower is it's a kind of an interesting thought. Maybe that the prey they need for their young they find more down in the ground level. Maybe it prevents, the cuckoos are less likely to find it. Not sure, but they do it. And if somehow or other there's an advantage for them. And so, yeah, you've got this whole interaction with these two different kinds of thornbills that lead to very different kinds of lives. And so you've got that sort of, this very odd cooperative breeding model. I should say that cooperative breeding model is also shared by the buff-rump thornbill, which you find out in Western Sydney more. And they have exactly the same little social model of the clan, and then the little cooperative group, and then, breaking up again and helping each other. So very interesting thing. And of course out there's a lot more competition because there's a lot more yellow thornbills and a lot more guys who are going to be in that shrub layer and sub canopy. But sub canopy is not a very good place to be in the summer out in Western Sydney because that's when all of your white-throated georginis turn up and little lorikeets and all kinds of things come in, and it gets very busy in those treetops, and the competition's more, a lot more stiffer. So it's very good for striated thornbills and buff-rump thornbills to move down anyway. But yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of a snapshot of some of that feeding ecology and breeding ecology of those two little somewhat related groups of birds. And I guess it gives a little bit of an insight into some of the workings of the living world, and some of the different pathways that small birds will go down in order to be able to live their lives. So has anyone got questions about that? Or
I'm looking.
I'm just looking. The chat's got a few things in it.
Yeah, I put one in, but you answered it before I'd even finished it.
You just answered it. Okay. Yeah. Because they're they're quite I mean, as we look around through all of these groups, we find a lot of very different, interesting things go on. Cousins of the yellow-throated scrub wren and white-browed scrub wren, of course, are the large-billed scrub wren, which are also found around Sydney. They're very interesting because they are sometimes they will pair breed and sometimes they will cooperatively breed. And they are, again, we see this whole resource petitioning thing with these birds because like today I was watching brown georginis, brown thornbills, large-billed scrub wrens, all foraging together, all slightly differently. That long bill with the large-billed scrub wren getting into the vines, getting into the bark. Right beside it is the brown thornbill gleaning from amongst the leaf axils and sort of flitting around in the shrub layer. And there in that shrub layer as well is the brown thornbill, the brown gerygony taking much smaller prey and staying more on the outer parts of the foliage, though, because they will go all over the place. But I tend to notice when you've got a brown thornbill present, they will move more to the outer parts of the tree. So, yeah, it's very interesting how birds will share those resources and share that and move in a habitat accordingly, and how they're adapted to do this. And we see this as well in, say, crested shrike tits. Of course, we see it in shorebirds. It's very, very obvious with all the different bill lengths and leg lengths and all the combinations of everything they have. But we see this in, say, crested shrike tits, which are a fascinating group of birds. Is everyone here familiar with crested shrike tits?
They're just big bullies, Ricki. They rip bark everywhere.
Yeah, I can try and I'll see if I can find you a picture of a amongst my
one of my favourite birds, actually.
Everyone wants to see a crested shrike tit. Why can't I see let me go to my desktop and I'll see if I can find one of these things. Original art. So find it amongst my artwork here. I've only got okay. Oh, I will have something up here. Here we go. Oh, here it is. So, all right, well, I can share that. So let me close that off and let me share a picture of the crested shrike tit. So this is, actually, we call them the eastern shrike tit now, because they are, we've now split them into the northern shrike tit, the western shrike tit, and the eastern shrike tit. We found that they are, although very similar in appearance, there are quite solid differences, and we've decided these are separate species, not just subspecies.
So they're morphological differences or genetic differences, Ricki?
Oh, both. Yeah, definitely morphological. Yeah, great differences in the looks, the appearance of the birds.
Right.
But it's also in the male and the female of these birds. And I'm going to open up, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, I don't think it matters, but let me see. Crested shrike. Because I'm going to try and find, there's pictures of me holding them, which can be terrifying. And we can get a bit of a look at the size of one of these birds. I don't know if can you see that now?
Yeah.
Me holding a crested shrike?
No, not at the moment. We've still got
okay, so I'll stop it sharing and I will share this image. And so yes.
Wow.
So you can see me holding the crested shrike tit. You can see that is a formidable bill.
Wise to hold it like that, Ricki. Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he already bit me earlier through the bag. So I had him in a calico bag and he bit me through that. And it smarted, I can tell. Look at that bill. If anyone's been bitten by a budgie, I can promise you a budgie has nothing on these guys, because they spend their days stripping bark off trees and making that little flipper call, sounding like Flipper, the dolphin. And these are quite amazing because they are a cooperative breeder. So they live in, basically they're bark foragers, and they will bring along the young from their last clutch. And they will basically,
a bit like the kookaburra, is it, Ricki? Where the aunts hang around and help look after the kids.
Oh no, and I'm not sure. To the best of my knowledge, it is young males and females. It could be only the females, so it could be just the aunts. So it could be a little bit like the kookaburra. I'm not quite sure about that, but I do know that they are cooperative. And so they need to stay together because they're quite mobile. And it seems to me that bark foraging might not be quite as profitable as some other lifestyles, because what you have happening is, in order to keep them to be able to find enough resources, they've also chosen resource petitioning, but in this case, it's not between species, it's between the sexes. So the male will more often be found on the trunk of the tree and the larger branches, ripping bark off there and feeding on invertebrates that they find. And the females will be found on the smaller twigs and leaves and outer branches of the tree. And this is reflected in, I was going to find you a photo that I took in the Australian Museum years ago, but I've got this sort of drawing that I've done. That's not the one I wanted to do. Let me stop that share and try again here. So I want to share this one. It keeps on showing this. I do not know why. I'm going to close that. Can you see that my illustration of crested shrike tits now?
Yeah, it's still there.
Good. Okay, so you can see that male bill in my illustration is much bigger than the more gracile bill. So he's got this more robust bill and she's got this more gracile bill, or smaller, finer bill, because she's doing more finer work. So they have basically evolved to reflect their needs. So to have a bill that is best adapted for feeding on the smaller twigs and leaves for the female, she does less bark ripping, and the male does more bark ripping, more heavy duty bark ripping than the female. And of course they break the rules, but for the most part they follow these things. So they have like what we call intra-specific resource petitioning. And it seems that this is being taken up because they have to have a larger family group together. So cooperative breeding is more successful in terms of raising young, but creates more pressure on resources. So in order to manage that, they've taken to this resource petitioning. So sharing or working a tree in such a way that they don't compete with each other. So I call it kind of like the caring, sharing way of life. And so we see this reflected a lot. So it's there in when we look around, you know, communities of or small foraging guilds of different kinds of, you know, small insectivores, and we see it in shorebirds, and we see it in marine life everywhere. We see it with animals on the plains of Africa, and we see it in amongst all these different kinds of birds as well. So it's a fascinating little part of the world, and this is really finding your niche and making it your own is really the story of evolution of life on Earth, because we live in a realm of almost unlimited life or organisms with a limited amount of resources. And so how to get your piece. And yeah, it seems that by finding a niche, making it your own, or having your niche, and then as conditions change and you move into another area, you can make that your own in a population. And so we see the way that life unfolds. Pretty amazing story, and how various animals deal with that and deal with those pressures. And so choosing the sex of your young is one way, and resource petitioning is another.
Ricki, in terms of resource petitioning, if they're basically monogamous, but they don't hang around together, as you said is the case with the yellow-throated,
yeah,
the resource that they require then is the individual bird's resource.
Yes.
Do they have an overlapping territory, or do they disperse further?
No, they stay, like the pair will stay within their territory. Like the territory for those, I know, Brian, you'll be familiar with this. When you arrive at Jersey Springs, just before you walk into the picnic area, there's that ditch with like, it's a little bit of a creek affair that's usually dry.
Where a pitter was there for a while.
Yes. And I, of course, didn't get to see that. So it's just quite annoying. But yes. So there's that ditch, and if you walk 195 metres along Lady Carrington Drive, you will come to like a spot where there's a little bit of a gap with some trees, and it's like that is the end of Herb and Dorry's territory.
Right.
So their surname is Feather Fluffer. So they're Herb and Dorry Feather Fluffer. And
So they maintain their own territory, which is the same size territory, non-breeding to breeding, or do they?
Yeah. And they use their territory in very interesting ways. Most of their territory is it's fairly open on the ground with like fern cover. So you can sort of hop around under the ferns, and there's sort of like a layer of palm amongst most of these. And then you go up higher, and of course there's the eucalypts and the figs and the other sort of wet forest trees offering that canopy. So they hop around on that forest floor openly, foraging most of the time, and they've always got some denser area to retreat to if they need to.
Yeah.
And but when they're raising their young, they go and find the denser area and tend to sort of forage closer to that so their young can escape into that sort of patch. And that seems to be their strategy. So yeah, their territories are very interesting. They sort of find a use for the different kinds of resources in that territory.
So basically the male does not need to create a territory to attract a female in this situation.
No. So they find their partner and they settle down.
Unless death doth do part them.
Yes, and then I guess that another male or another female will move in, and this is where one really does need to get down and put a few nets out and catch them and band them and take some blood samples and start to see who's related to who and get an idea of demographics along that river.
And there was evidence, Ricki, in the magpie's case, in this case, that if a male part of a pair is either killed or removed, another male will come in and take over. And apparently the second male, the stepfather, if you like, outshines the original male in parenting, which is totally against what, for example, a lion would do, who would come in and kill all the offspring of another lion. Have you? I dare say there's been no research on that in Thornbills, but it would be fascinating to know.
Well, what a wonderful way for a male to turn up and be such a good father, a good sire to his new wife's children, to bond. Of course, a lot of primates, langurs in India turn up, and cats do this, kill all the offspring. And lions definitely kill all the offspring, but a lot of monkeys will do the same and say, right, now I'm going to assert my genes. Maybe the magpie has found it's more advantageous if he's going to hang around with his girl, not to start by killing all of her offspring. And it's just because.
Well, I don't know what goes on in her head, but apparently it works.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, my local ones are caroling together beautifully and sort of landing on the top of the telegraph pole and doing the whole head back and singing their little hearts out together, and so I think there's a lot of complex pair bonding among birds.
Cheryl, when you write, can eastern shrub tits be observed in Lady Carrington? I take it you mean the eastern shrike tit?
Yes.
And indeed they are.
Yes, yeah. Especially, I've had them on both ends, and I've had them nesting about 2 years ago. They were nesting just down, if you walk down the bottom of the big slope along there, like if you're heading south from the north end of the drive, you come down that big hill, walk about 50 metres further along, and I had them nesting there about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years back. And I also had them nesting before you got to the hill to walk down the hill as well. So, and there is a lone female for a long time on the south end of Lady Carrington Drive, and you could call her in so easily, and just make a few little crested shrike tit or eastern shrike tit calls, and down she'd come. So she was looking for a boyfriend. I hope she found one. But yeah, so they I can't remember where I was what I was waffling on about now. Oh yeah, so we were talking about I'm trying to think. We then started talking about the magpies. What were we talking about before the magpies?
Oh, it was more to do with the size of the territory was the question.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So the male and the female yellow-throated scrub wren will use the same territory, but they split up and they feed away from each other. And they just keep in touch with this sort of very sibilant little whistle call. And that's it. But any week now, you are going to go down and see them side by side, hopping along together, going tack, tack, tack as they hop together. And he will be feeding her every now and again. And as he increases feeding her, then she will start to build the nest. And if you go down into the forest, you can definitely see these discrete behaviours going on through the course of the year. Brown thornbills do the same thing. They feed apart. Now you see pairs of brown thornbills everywhere. They're definitely all in pairs now, and they are defending territories. Up on the Alula track, it is absolutely war. If you if you park in front of the school at Waterfall there and walk down onto the Alula Falls Trail, you sort of go down that little path. I don't walk through the forest anymore, it's so flooded and awful usually. So I just walk down the little path beside the school. And as you're walking down there and sort of get onto the main Alula Trail, all that section is full of brown thornbills fighting like crazy. And yeah, so it's very fascinating to watch and to see how these changes take place over the year in behaviour and how they come together. So they're not competing with each other in their territory in the off season, but as soon as the breeding season starts they come together and the male starts feeding the female. With these sort of cooperative breeding little scrub wrens, it's kind of a little bit different. It's that they get so quiet after breeding season that it's hard to tell. And they're a little bit like the fairy wrens as well. They come and go, like you'll get a week or two where you see fairy wrens everywhere and you see white-browed scrub wrens everywhere, then they vanish again. And then you'll get a few weeks of them out again, then they vanish. And it's really annoying if, like me, you're running bird watching tours and promising people to see these birds because what's going on, I'm pretty sure, is when they've got a clutch at a certain stage, they become secretive again. Mm-hmm. And so there's times when they're out showy and very active and getting around, and then there's times when they're not so showy, and that's when I think they're trying to keep their young hidden. So so white-browed scrub wrens can be quite secretive and just stay underneath their shrubbery so much, and you don't see a whole lot of it. And it's very hard to get a handle on the family dynamics of those birds until breeding season, and suddenly you see 5 of them together in a group raising, a whole bunch of other little chicks as well, and it's quite crazy along the trails.
There's a couple of sets of little brown birds I'd like you to discuss in Royal, if you don't mind, Ricki.
Yes.
The various fairy wrens, who stay little brown birds for most of the damn
They
time.
are, indeed.
And the heath wrens, who are pains in the ass because they never give me a chance to photograph them.
No. I'm always trying to get a little bit of video of chestnut rumped heath wrens, and sometimes I once had a really curious one, and it was on the day I didn't have any kind of a camera with me because I'm not a big bird photographer, so I often don't take the camera because I like to be in the moment when I'm looking at that bird, and it drives me crazy if I'm trying to take a photo, and that's for later. And I want to be there right in that moment, locked in, observing that bird. So, yeah, so I don't always take a camera. And of course, on the day I didn't take a camera, I had a very curious chestnut rumped heath wren follow me along a trail.
That could be right.
And giving me so many opportunities. And I could have got all kinds of footage of this big little bird bobbing along and calling at me and mimicking at me. And yeah, but you know where I get them every time I go walking is that heath in the Wallamara Trail. So up the top, if I walk the Wallamara Trail up the top, I always get at least one chestnut rumped heath wren, and I always get at least one southern emu wren.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, they're abundant there. The best spot for southern emu wrens I know is the what's the name of that trail? I can't think of it. It's in Kurnell, Gamay Botany Bay National Park there. And there's a trail you can walk along. Oh, it's terrible for me to forget the name.
It's the Yenna Headland Trail.
The Yena Trail,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you walk on that, so you've got to sort of, you sort of branch off and head towards the Cape Bailey track through that very low heath.
Yeah.
And you always get emu wrens there. Because they're down in Madden Plains and that, but just a little more local to Sydney is Gamay Botany Bay National Park. They're very plentiful there. Because sometimes you go and they're not there because they're also doing that thing with the nests and hiding out and but yeah, so that's quite a thing there. But the chestnut rump teeth wrens. It's I have the best success on that Wallamara Trail.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you've really got to listen for some mimicry, something a little bit strange, and so you've got to be alert to it. And when you hear it, you look, and there they'll be sitting there. There'll be some male. I presume they're the males. I've mostly seen the males doing this, is sitting up there mimicking, having a look round, and they duck down because, like the emu wrens, they feed on the ground in between all that sort of dense heath, and so you just can't see them unless they come up for a look around. And
Ricki,
so,
can I ask, with those wrens that you're just talking about on the Wallamara track, particularly early morning, or is this all day? Because I have walked it recently, but what time is perhaps optimum to see them?
well, the best view I got of the chestnut rump teeth wren recently was 11 a.m. And I did the whole trail that day. So I went down to the bottom and I walked right down to Bowler Creek, where it joins, like where the little bridge at Lady Carrington Drive is, and walked back. And I was back up the top walking along the trail, and I got fabulous views. And he stayed out for quite a while of a chestnut rump teeth wren. And I think during these cooler months, and especially this year, I've really noticed that the birds are coming out a bit later and staying out for much later, and you can really bird for most of the day. It's really fabulous, especially some of these small birds. So yeah, right into it. But I've never seen a southern emu wren after 10 a.m.
Okay.
So other people may have different experiences, but yeah, for me, I've never seen one after 10 a.m.
No, I've managed to get them awake a bit after that occasionally.
Apparently and it would seem that they're one of the more common birds in the park. It's just
there's a few good spots in Heathcote National Park for them as well.
Oh, really? I've never had one there. So Heathcote.
Yeah. Near the highway. I'll take you out there sometime, Ricki.
Yeah, I'd like to see that kind of patch up. Yeah. Because usually I just do the Pipeline Trail and around there in Heathcote, and the easy trail down behind the Scout Hall there and that kind of thing. And I had some people on a tour down there not too many months ago, and well, I guess it was at least 6 months ago now, because mistletoe birds were breeding right on the trail. And so, because mistletoe birds aren't always an easy get in the park.
No.
And as it turned out, I had it was the same people actually. I did 2-day tour for them, and so we were out on it's on that trail near Garrawarra. You've got the Garrawarra Trail, but you can go from the car park and do that other sort of one that takes you down towards Helensburgh, and sort of you can walk out along that trail there. And I got mistletoe birds there, and then the very next day we got mistletoe birds nesting in Heathcote. So that was very, very cool.
Now, Ricki, it's 8:15. I better triple check if there's anybody got any questions at this stage.
Please.
Otherwise, you and I could just rattle on our own.
Well, we will.
So please, Ricki, could you please spell out again those birds that you said in Western Sydney that started to come in and dominate the upper parts and scare the wrens down? I sort of missed it. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, your white-throated Georgiines.
Oh, white-throated Eurygony.
Yeah, which are quite aggressive. They turn up and they start that beautiful song of theirs, but of course that's an aggressive territorial call. They start chasing things around, and also soon, if anything's in flower around that time, you start to get like hordes of little lorikeets, and of course stacks of fuscus honeyeaters, and a lot of bully birds just straight into the canopy, and they'll just chase anything down. So that also makes it advantageous, I think, for your
Mm.
some of these smaller acanthizids or thornbills to get down into the shrub layer.
So wimp birds out there and disappear into the Bosseria spinosa, the
Well,
spiny thorny bushes.
feel sorry for them with all the development that goes on out there and
Oh man,
the
yeah,
general subtraction of all the, Cumberland Plain, all that woodland. It's just
yeah.
actually going.
Folks, if my body is still okay after I've had various things done to it, I'll be putting on some walks in the Western Sydney reserves during spring.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there is no primary Castlereagh forest left, apparently. Even like Castlereagh Reserve and Wianamata Reserve, those places are regrowth. So it's
Even so, there's still some good bird watching in Castlereagh.
it can be fabulous. When it's working, it's amazing.
Also some very good spots in Skyville.
Yeah. Skyville's really good for white-throated Georgiines and
Yes.
shrike tits,
Yes.
I find.
And even still, Jackie Winters.
Yes, indeed. And so the quail are all good out there. Castlereagh Reserve's exceptionally good for painted button quail and bronze wings. But it's a great reserve. Like I say, when it's working, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's a really good place to be. When it's not working, it's as dead as. Right now, though, if you want to just see rose robins, just go out there, and I guarantee you'll get at least half a dozen and very good views of them. Like if you want rose robins in Royal National Park, I find they're always way up in the canopy, and they tend to come down a little bit lower out there in Castlereagh.
Yeah. Dave Noble, you photographed rose robins out west, didn't you, sir? You may have walked away from the screen.
Yeah, he's on mute and no picture. Yeah.
I know.
Mm.
If he comes back on, I'll let him tell you all about
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Dave.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Can't see you, though.
the mute was pressed on or something like that. Rose robins at Nalgidgee and at Oakley Park recently.
Did you hear that?
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Mm.
Also, they've been down at Audley.
See, I haven't been to Audley for weeks and weeks. So I'm going there on Friday.
There you are. Chris has just confirmed it. 2 rose robins at Lady Carrington at Audley last Saturday. And down low.
Beautiful. Oh, and down low. Well, yeah. It's actually, sometimes you get them even in Fig Tree Flat in amongst that acacia.
Yeah.
Along the river there.
In fact, I think that's where Ken Griffiths, who's not on the call tonight, photographed one the other day down there.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Actually, Fig Tree Flat, you can get so many great birds. It's a brilliant place to go. And I've had everything from families of cicada birds there to, all kinds of kingfishers breeding, and it's just a fabulous spot, Fig Tree Flat.
Well, given that no one's asking any questions, I've got one last one, and we'll make it the last one.
Okay.
It's the habit of all these little birds to do mixed species flocks. What triggers them, and why do they travel together? I think I know many of the answers, but
because there are a few answers to this one, because there's a few advantages, and you can look at it in different ways. Like it's always the safety in numbers principle, but each other's disturbing prey. And I think the prey disturbance thing is a big thing once you start to get, because you can get like silver eyes and tree creepers and all kinds of things moving in on these small mixed foraging flocks.
I've often noticed that they hang around with fantails are usually
I was
part
going
of
to say that's the tell, because the fantails are there because of the disturbance, because they're often you can attract a fantail by just standing there and shaking a bush, and they'll come over because they realise that you're disturbing insects for them. So yeah, the tell that there is that disturbance factor going on that's advantageous probably to everyone, is that the grey fantail will turn up and start bludging on everyone. Yeah, so and that's what I think must be one of the key things. And with shorebirds, it's a little different because they're getting swooped by raptors all the time. And I know there are, raptors lurking in forests and other, there's kookaburras and currawongs and things that will always be in for a swoop. But I think that it's possibly more about that disturbance factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, but that's
it's a good fun for
conjecture.
bird watching. Then you can really practice your bird watching skills with a mixed flock.
Yeah,
You end up fighting because one person's seen one bird and you've seen a different one, and you're both describing different birds.
Well, this is where one needs to get
Go on, that's the ad time now.
Yeah, it's time for the ad. So a little bit about this book, actually, that I wrote this for kind of beginners, in that half of the book covers topics like how to choose binoculars, how to walk a trail, even how to look at birds, because people will, if you say, I'm into birds, they'll say, I get this bird that lands on my back fence every day and it looks like this. And they give you the most diffuse description and you've got no way of being able to identify that bird for them. And it's because they don't know how to look at and describe a bird. So if you want to be, pro-level birding, you've got to know how to describe a bird. So we have all of that in there, how to look at them and, a bit about them and, all about their plumage and, where are they? And, things about their feet structure and everything like that. But, the sort of the feather topography of birds. And then there's this whole field guide section on the birds in the back of the book, and it helps you to make your comparisons, which is really important to be able to learn how to compare them. And I've numbered the features so that you know what's the most important thing to look at. Because for a lot of these little brown birds, there's one feature that each species has, that one discrete feature that you go, well, that's that. And it's like, for instance, and there can be a number of them too, like say the brown gerygony. If all you see is the tail, or you only see it from below, you've just got to look for those white patches on the bottom of the tail. If you see it from the top, silver face, black eye stripe, you're done. And their call's a giveaway too with the which is it. But I also did include in this, because I included about the biogeography, evolution, systematics and biogeography of little brown birds. Just the ones from Sydney, breeding ecologies and feeding ecologies. And the book's got a good bibliography and glossary in there. So it's all fully referenced, and dozens and dozens of papers that I had to read to produce this book. But all worth it. A wonderful learning experience. If you want to learn about birds, I think write a book about them. And, I entered into this thinking, I know a fair bit about these birds. Gee, you learn a lot more because you've got to read all these papers. But, so it's...
So as we close up, how much and where to get?
From my website, aussiewild.com.au. And
I'm sure Judy will put that in the Next Branch newsletter, because she would love to know if she can go on a field trip with you.
Oh, well, you can also do that, and you can do, these books are $38.
Thank you, Ricki.
And if you buy them in bulk, if you all get together and do a thing, I'll do you a deal. So
wow.
do that.
Okay.
Well, it's like the Illawarra people said, we're going to turn up on the 22nd of July and pick them up. So I said, well, we'll knock off the $10 postage.
That helps.
$8, to pick them all up, and they'll distribute them to their members. So, but there's that kind of thing. But yes, and if anyone wants to come for a walk with me, like I do like the $620 tour. And that's really for people who come from overseas. And I'm just sort of setting up these things where tours more aimed at a generalist view of the forest. So, and the tours are called things like Welcome to the Holobiont and We Are Carbon and things like that. So they're themed a little bit around understanding, because I'm finding that we conservation-minded people need to talk to people and about the wonders of the living world. Get them together, get them out there, and tell them how a forest works. Tell them what lichen is and how lichen works. Show them what's in a drop of water. Show them what's under the soil and under the leaves and on the bark and under the bark, and how a forest works. And you can sort of introduce that as well by the birds, and that's what I seek to do. Someone's talking there and they're on mute, I think. That's Rodney.
I don't think he was asking a question of you. Rodney, do you have a question? You're on mute at the moment. Oh, I think he's talking on the phone.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Ricki, I've got one, if I may.
Oh, yeah.
Wallamara track. Dave Robson's actually going to do a walk in September, particularly to showcase the birds because they're everywhere.
Yes.
Just what sort of birds would you say on the Wallamara track, late August, September, should we look for? And also throw in some little brown birds and where we should look at what time, starting at, say, about 9 o'clock at the east end.
Up the top. So starting up the top, 9 o'clock. You've probably missed the best of the tawny-crowned honeyeaters by then.
Okay.
If you get there at sunrise, you'll get beautiful dawn chorus of the tawny-crowned honeyeater, which is not to be missed.
Okay.
It is truly one of the most beautiful songs. When you get half a dozen tawny-crowned honeyeaters singing together, it is stunning.
This is a spring thing or summer thing, or particularly spring?
It is a spring thing. I also get it in autumn. So a few weeks ago, I was up there and got it, and beautiful, just beautiful. But yeah, you can still maybe get some tawny-crowned honeyeaters up there. They're really something to look for because New Holland honeyeaters are abundant.
Yeah.
In autumn, yellow-faced honeyeaters are highly abundant. I just wrote 300 plus on my records for them, and 150 plus for eastern spinebill on the same day. That is an amazing number of eastern spinebills. The other day I got dozens of eastern spinebills on the Wallamara Trail. It was last Sunday, just gone. But it was very dead. Otherwise, I got like one chestnut rumped heath wren, a flurry of eastern spinebills, and lots of New Holland honeyeaters. So they're the ubiquitous bird of the heath in the park.
Is Wallamara now at the right vegetation heights to still be seeing lots of brown quail?
I haven't seen any brown quail there for a while, but you can still see them there.
It's more likely than on the coast where it's been burnt a bit lower. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I haven't been on the Curramoors Fire Trail for a while, but I was getting them along there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in that loop trail as well.
Yeah.
I was getting brown quail there. Brown quail are good out there on that Kernell trail as well. But the white-eared honeyeaters, definitely one to look for. You'll hear them calling that choo 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 call from the woodlands, the little stunted woodlands as you walk down. But I reckon the best spot is you get to the forested section, walk in a little, and you can generally get them in the trees there.
Did the Wallamara track?
You're on the Wallamara Trail. So you do the heath, you just get into the top of the escarpment in that bush. Now, the cool thing here is if you walk in about 50 or 60 meters, you come to the first rock ledge on the right.
Sat on that
one. Often I get rock warblers there. The other day I went looking for rock warblers, or this would be 2 weeks ago, went looking for rock warblers. They weren't there, but then I hear a pilot bird. And so I whistle back and it comes straight over, cranky as you like. Tail
at the top of the ridge, Ricki.
Not before the top of the ridge.
No, there's a bench.
You're walking to the bush.
Yeah, no, I know the spot, but I've never. pilot birds I've only usually found right down in the gullies in Royal, but wow,
No,
that's
well, another great place for pilot birds is walking on the Curramore's trail, the Curramore's fire trail, and you go in about, I don't know, again, about 50 or 60 meters and listen. And you
yeah.
will hear them calling from the gullies on either side, and you can go and bush
Well,
back.
that I'd expect in the gullies. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, that's
but
interesting.
I've had them also on the trail and coming right over and just sitting in the bush and just sitting like 5 meters off the track, just on a rock in the bush, and having them come up right around me and recording them and taking a few crummy movies of them. But yeah, I've had them there. I've also had them on the coast track. And there's a couple of spots on the coast track, and there's one calling like once right beside the track, and you couldn't see it. It was so dense, but it was like 1 meter off the track. And the worst thing is I had people who it was their target bird for the day, and we just simply couldn't get the thing.
And if you descended, say, into the dry sclerophyll and the wet sclerophyll and the rainforest in Wallamurra track in springtime, would there be much a density of these brown birds at all, or not?
You get white-browed scrub wrens. Like as you go through that tall forest, that lovely tall forest, you get white-browed scrub wrens. You get way up in the top striated thornbills, but that's a neck breaker. You get some brown thornbill activity in that massive shrub layer, and you get brown diriginis there. Walking back up on the heath, it's all about variegated fairy wrens, white-browed scrub wrens, brown thornbills, and chestnut rumped heath wren.
Any diriginis in that area at all?
No, the diriginis you tend to find them more in forested areas. So yeah, definitely not really a bird of the heath. Even the little woodland patches on the heath, I don't generally tend to get the diriginis in there.
They down around Bowler Creek?
Yeah, down on Bowler Creek, they're everywhere. Gee, they were everywhere today down there. It was really, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
It's now after 8:30. You've done brilliantly, Ricki.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I hope that was informative. It seemed a little bit all over the place, but
that's fine. No, the beauty of why I wanted you is your ability to observe, as I said at the beginning, to stop, listen. And some of those who've come out walking with me have been hearing me talking about slow walking. I dared even talk about slow talking, as in shutting up.
Yeah. Well, the amount of talking you do will be definitely dictate the amount of birds you will see. And you don't become one of the people that stands at the back and talks.
That's right.
Stay up at the front with the person who's like leading, and you just do your thing. And as I was saying too, for people who want to do birding and tours and things like that, just contact me and say, Ricki, can I come birding with you? And we'll just go birding.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of do a thing with MPA people saying, you should pay that. Oh, I just got a bank transfer. Oh, that's good to see.
You mean you've just sold a book? Fantastic. Well, look, I'm going to call it quits, and thank you very much, Ricki.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely brilliant.
It's been wonderful to have the opportunity to speak and to meet people and see some familiar faces here as well. So
lots of familiar faces.
Yes. And you've got to harangue and harass me to join.
Yep.
And Dave's
I'm
giving you
not
a
even a
little
member
clap,
of the MPA.
a little heart from Brenda, and a clap from Kathy. We've done well. And
I'll just put
Ian, I think I'll let you turn everybody off and send us home.
Well, I think we've had a wonderful time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, thank you very much.
I will depart, and happy birding, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
You.
Thanks for the inspiration. Thank you.
Bye-bye.